It is week 9, and here is kind of what we are going to do today is look at research and how to get better at researching. So what I wanted to do to start out with is to think about what we already know about researching. And we're going to kind of take this, instead of researching 101, we're going to kind of do this at like a junior level research and what that means. So for juniors in college, that's kind of the starting point for us, or baseline junior level. All right, I'm going to share the screen and get this going. I would want to know, on basically your own thinking, how good of a researcher you are on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being an amazing researcher, 1 being not a good researcher. How good of a researcher are you? Okay, that's for your own reference. Hopefully in 4 weeks, if I ask you the same question, you'll be able to say you're better. And now the question is, what would it mean if you are going to become a better researcher? What does that even mean? So what habits or skills, let's do skills first. What skills go into being a quote unquote a better researcher? And what I'm going to call them habits of mind go into being a better researcher. So I'm curious about our baseline, and I don't want to talk this whole time. So tell me, what does this even mean?
I'm juicy for this. So I don't know.
If I'm going to be good at researching, what am I good at?
Searching the databases.
Yeah. I'm going to say there's 2 things really here. Obviously, databases is huge. Knowing where to search and how to search. How do we search online? Or maybe that's too much of a leading question. Yeah, give us some help here.
On like CSU, we have like the academic search premier, I think it's called.
Awesome.
Through the library, and there's also Google Scholar.
Good. We are going to look at both of those. And by the end of the day, you will know different, or will, if you don't know the difference in strengths and weaknesses of each of these, you will. Good. And how to search would be your search terms. And this is where it starts to get a little interesting. Do we know what we probably, this is one of the few Latin roots we actually do know. What does Latin root re mean again? What does re mean?
I think you said it again.
Yeah, again. Well, I'm blowing it. So what does researching mean? Searching again and again. So one of the things that we're doing when we're researching is being willing to search over and over again. Let's look at Google. Is Googling, well, Googling is a verb. Are you good at Googling? It's the weirdest verb ever. What does it mean to be good at Googling, or know people that are bad at Googling, that can't seem to find information using Google? And I will introduce the cat if she comes back. She just wanted to make sure she could open the door and then promptly left.
Could a good use be using effective words?
Yes, that's the main thing that I wanted to, that is definitely, and there's a specific term for that, which is search terms or search term phrases, right? Thinking about like, and Google is good at helping you out. So if you, I think I saw a video of elderly people using Google and like talking to it, like adding please after the query, like how do I get to the closest Applebee's, please, question mark, so Google can tell me that. Use effectiver. Yeah, we're gonna roll with that. Search terms that are more, if use effective search terms. Yes. And then there's another basic skill here that we're gonna try to work on, which I'm gonna say is maybe not obvious, but when you're researching, aren't you skimming a lot? And are you not sorting a lot as well? Sorting information into whether or not you should follow it or not? Deciding whether to go further or stop? Going down rabbit holes. I'm now wondering about going down a cryptocurrency versus stablecoin rabbit hole to determine the long-term economic prospects of where to spend the money that I have and what to do with the business that I'm thinking about starting. That could go like crazy, right? Or in any direction. Other things that this makes you think of if you're a good researcher. And we could also ask, we don't have any habits of mind yet. One of my favorite professors basically, and I'm curious what you think about this, is this is a contentious one. He said, he was an Irish Catholic Nietzsche scholar. Nietzsche famously said the two enemies of civilization are the Christian church and alcohol, both because they confuse us as to what's actually going on and make things seem better than they actually are. So anyway, it's very interesting to be an Irish Catholic Nietzsche scholar. He said that research was about a game of intuition, which I actually really like as a way of thinking about the fun of research, is when you're exploring this giant world of information and you could literally choose anything. That's one of the things that's interesting to consider, is what leads to follow and why. So that might be something interesting to consider here as well. But intuition can mess with us by giving us faulty signals and that kind of a thing as well. What habits of mind go into being a better researcher, or other skills? I don't know if fun is a skill, but I am going to make it a skill. I think people that have more fun are more skillful at what they do in general. Just have
I think
about
having the curiosity for like a habit of mind, like wanting to learn more from the research and like kind of having an open mind.
Good. I wanted to remind you from last week that curiosity was the #1 trait that shareholders look for CEOs, for two interesting reasons. Yeah, and Carolyn added another one, evaluating resources. We're almost at everything that I was hoping we would get at. With curiosity, there's two things that we're looking for if I'm from a business and I'm curious about competition, so competitors. What are competitors doing? And I'm also curious about our own internal processes. So in our sense, if we're going to make the most out of this research project that we're going to be doing for the next 4 weeks, and I'm really tempted to just cancel all Zoom classes next week, just because we're going to be doing research and it's a good week to take off in this class. And it's kind of, once we get a sense of what we're doing this week, which we'll go over today, it's kind of easy. I think I can get you what you need on today and Wednesday for you to just kind of run with it. And one of the things that we're looking at is not competitors. If I'm researching in business for a competitive advantage, I'm going to be researching the competitors that I have, but I'm also researching myself in a certain regard. So I'm researching the world, but I'm also researching my own response to the world, which is a key to here. And yes, when I'm open-minded, I'm open to finding things that are going to disprove or to go against my confirmation bias. And evaluating resources is exactly, we would say, healthy skepticism around that. To not believe what we are told necessarily, and to approach things with skepticism. Any other habits of mind that go, there's two other big ones, I think, that go into good research. Mental habits. They both start with P. If you can have patience to kind of find the right stuff and then perseverance to find what you find, to look for the best stuff, I think those are all really helpful. Okay, we actually did get a lot of what I was hoping to do. In terms of being a better researcher, as far as if I'm a librarian or a scholar of information, I'm going to separate this into kind of three categories. And the first is a verb of accessing information. And this is exactly what Paul said about knowing where to search and how to search. So knowing the right databases and then knowing the right words to use and being willing to change those words to make sure that you're finding the best information that's out there would all be under accessing the right information. The second one is your ability to evaluate the right information or the information that you find. How reliable is the information? So when we're thinking about accessing information, you're thinking about where to find it and how to find it. If you're evaluating information, you're thinking about how reliable is it? Can I trust it? And then the final phase of the research process is somewhere between responding to the information that you're getting and using it. So what am I going to do with this information once I have it? This goes into citing information, integrating information, synthesizing information, making conclusions about that information. Ideally, you're not just researching because just for its own sake. You're thinking about how you can use that information to act. In terms of like real world research, not like research that you've done for a class, but has anybody done any research that no one told you to do? Or you're just researching something because you really because you need to in some way?
The ballots.
Yes, awesome example. It's not the one that I thought of. The freaking 18-page, or it's huge, deciding what to vote on, especially the particular amendments and constitutional differences, those kinds of things. You can also find secondary sources, right? Like there's a few sources that I like to confer with when I am filling out my ballots that are not my mom and dad, but other people and other like organizations that believe what I believe, that I want to see what they say. Other things you've researched on your own accord. Fantastic. The ones I was thinking of and looking for is job prospects or other things to basically, yeah, job prospects and people. You can research people about what, not just political candidates, but people you might want to work for or people you're thinking about reaching out to. And then I think we also research stuff when we're getting ready to buy something. Whenever we're thinking about making a big purchase, don't we usually research it to see what people say about it? And this interesting, like if we really want something, it's nice to research why it might not be good for us or why it might not be good to get, i.e. we're kind of taking into consideration tolerance for alternative views. In fact, that's one definition of intelligence, is the ability to have multiple conflicting views that you're processing and being able to process them kind of in a more open-minded way. So I'm going to shift to kind of what we're going to do this week and why we're going to do what we're doing. And that is, no, not there. If we go to modules, you can see basically why I wanted to do this is researching, and the next 4 weeks are kind of like a culmination of what we've done in this class. We're really getting better at reading, thinking, critically analyzing information, and doing that as quickly as possible. So hopefully we're still interested in getting better at reading and writing, and this is a really clear way to do that. So we are working on choosing original sources, using appropriate sources, using proper in-text and end-of-text citations for the fields that you're in, MLA or APA, maintaining a record of research and inquiry to kind of track what you're doing. Those are your reading notes. And then you're still practicing revising and editing for concision and audience clarity. You have 3 reading notes this week. And the one for today, I'm going to ask that you do before Wednesday. I do want you to kind of poke around in some discipline-specific library databases, and that you have 2 days of student choice reading that I want to go over. For Wednesday, before class, preferably, actually, would be very helpful because I want to compare notes. There's a link to this critical information literacy guide, which I don't want to leave quite yet. I want us to think a little more about it. Critical information literacy, again, takes into consideration the social, political, economic, and corporate systems that have power and influence over the information production, dissemination, access, and consumption. We talked about that a little bit last week, about how the information that we receive costs money to create. And a lot of information that certain bodies do not want us to know. I was just looking at the food industry and the pharmaceutical industry. So I read a very biting criticism that the food industry doesn't want, basically, I'm going to leave that aside. Big pharma and big agriculture are both manipulating information that we're getting along with all kinds of things, industries that, this is a giant topic. So I still want to think about this. In terms of our reading and thinking about this, the first, I'm just asking you to choose one article from this list. And some of these articles are TED Talks. Interrogating our access to information, which is about filter bubbles and search engine bias. Also about how we classify information. If you're a real library nerd, you might be interested in this one, but probably not otherwise. The reliability of information. And then considering how we respond or use the information that we get. And this is interesting, that where I said that intuition is a great research tool, that can also lead us astray. Our intuition might tell us something that isn't actually true. And this is kind of close to confirmation or desirability bias as well. So for Wednesday, you're picking one article out of this, and I could ask you for your self-directed learning, in terms of you getting better at researching information. So if you want to get better at researching, which of these 3 things do you feel like you could get better at most? Are you getting to be a better researcher by just accessing the information that you need? Or are you getting to be a better researcher by evaluating and quickly reading the information that you do find? Or in responding using that information? It might be worth in your notes to identify how you hope to grow over the next 4 weeks, so you have a baseline to see whether or not you're getting your money and time's worth. I'm curious about which of these 3 things, access, evaluation, or use, you feel like is most important for you and why.
I think evaluating the information is hard for me because I usually choose a research topic I have some passion about. So I go in with some confirmation bias. So it's hard to neutrally evaluate information. And I guess it also kind of bleeds over into the accessing information because some of my search terms might already be biased.
Fantastic, thank you. Other responses to that? It's not necessary that you share it, but that we are at least thinking about it. Excellent. Riley says in the chat, responding, how I can integrate a source and put it into my own words. We're going to work on that. And for me, as you go through, Riley, I would just be looking for quotes, and not long quotes, but really short quotes. So it's also knowing what parts of the sources are best to integrate. For scholarship, you know, you're probably not going to use the methodology section of articles, those kinds of things. Good. So do we have some goals set that you want to get better at one of those things? If, for example, you're really into evaluating or responding, you might choose to read an article on that. Okay, let's look at what we're going to do with this. No, that's not it. So 3 reading notes, and they are your choice. There's some librarian created videos. What you're going to do, that was due Friday, but I'm just making due Sunday to give you more time, is a multimodal research web log, i.e. this is a draft for a blog post that is about something about your research that you've done so far. I'm asking for over 500 words, but I don't like 500 good words, obviously, I guess, with 1 visual or multimodal element. The original post and 2 peers are due Sunday at midnight, revised post with self-assessment due Monday. Your visual presentation counts. Revise and organize your work in an accessible way. I'm increasingly impatient with giant blocks of text. Okay, so basically, and this looks like I need to edit this because there's some words in here I don't need. What we're doing, looking for is one picture, embedded video or audio. Make your text visually appealing as possible. No giant blocks of text allowed, or at least, you know, kind of start separating it. Title your research as specifically as possible. For an example, introduce your goals for the research for the week. Tell the story of where you started and maybe your inquiry questions. Record and formally note what you found. Summarize and discuss to connect your questions with MLA or APA citations. This should be on the next line. Pose new questions for the research. So this is how it could look. So I have the title. I have an image that pulls the reader in. I've cited where the image comes from. I tell my audience basically what I found this week that was the most interesting to me. I give notes and discussion on that. And in my notes or discussion, I have some, this is kind of a rough draft of what I might do. So there's some self-talk in here where I'm not really sure whether or not this is relevant. And I'm kind of thinking on the page. So it's kind of like a little stream of consciousness stuff. And there is some of my questions as I'm going. So it's just showing that I'm like kind of thinking about the information. And then questions for next week, I'm thinking about where to take this information, and then I have a citation. I was hesitant to give you this example because there's so many different ways to do this well. You may, let's say you find, instead of, this is over just one source, but let's say you find 4 sources that are all really interesting and you just want to get a good foundation for your research this week. Your words could come from your 5 different citations with a tiny little blurb about why you chose those sources. So you're kind of starting to build up what could be a works cited page or a resource list. So this is all information from this one source that connects with some other sources. But this could be, you could do 5 different sources, or you could include more visual aspects if you're doing more visual oriented final project, and not like a research essay. But you're basically just presenting the information that you have and have found to all of us in a way that we can give you feedback and ask further questions on what you've done. So that's basically, you're going to do 3 of these, one this week, one next week, and one the week after that. And you're basically just going to dive into your topic and become more of an expert in that area. Does that make sense? Okay. I wanted to go over questions that you have so far, and I've already gotten some good ones. And particularly if you feel like over your research topics, if you are unsure about where to go or you have worries about your topic, I want to kind of hear about them. And ideally, I don't think you're probably not alone in the concerns that you have. So it might be good to get this for everybody. Maybe I'll shift back actually to the, does anybody feel like you want any extra help with your research topics? And I want to go over some of the questions I've already gotten on them.
Like one question about mine.
Great.
So I was doing like how being like physically active will help like firefighters like as a whole.
Yep.
I just wanted to hear if like these like 3 claims that I thought of were like relevant. And I was going to say like how being physically fit will help you with the tasks and like the hiring process, how being physically fit will extend your career, and how it will help like reduce like the risk for like the diseases and like PTSD for like the common mental and physical diseases of firefighters.
Good. And your question is whether and how that is going to go forward for you?
I was just wondering if like that
outline?
Yeah. If that sounds like kind of like a good outline to start with.
The only thing I don't like about that is that it seems like all those are a given. And I don't know that there's any real controversy or curiosity there. It just seems like that's all, isn't that all true?
Yeah, that's kind of why I was kind of unsure about my topic.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that intuition is really smart to follow. Because it seems like it's almost just too true already. Like all that seems true.
Okay, so maybe look into something else.
Well, it could be like there's some interesting questions surrounding that. Like, let's just take it as a given. All those things are true. Physical fitness helps prevent injury, helps make you more hireable, and I don't know what the other one was. Doesn't matter. How should I get more physically fit? What about being more physically fit if I had a gym membership? How much does my mental standpoint connect to that? What about mental diet, nutrition? How does that connect to it? Sleep habits. I want to be more physically fit, Trevor. I'm a high metabolistic guy that wishes I could be a firefighter. What can I do?
Okay, so kind of maybe look into like how sleeping might help you be a firefighter, how like nutrition might help.
What are you curious? Like what's the best way? I'm also curious, like I want to spend as little time as possible and get as fit as possible. What should I do? Burpees? Is that my bang for my buck?
Okay.
Like I want to be bigger than everybody else.
So kind of maybe,
Or maybe is that bad? I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, kind of maybe look into like how can you be, how can you be physically fit? Like to be a good firefighter, it's like sleeping habits, nutrition, and then like kind of like what exercises to look into.
Yeah, and I think that's what I would try to find something that you're genuinely curious about. So it could also be like the best training programs out there that are free, or whether or not it's worth it to get a trainer, or how to hack the whole like training thing. You know, I really like this the Finding Mastery podcast. Yeah. Which is on elite performance. And he talks about mental attitudes a lot. That's just I'm interested in that. And there's, you know, getting physical, and the physical aspect would be great with that as well. So I would ask more questions around that.
Okay. So not why being physically fit will make you a better firefighter, but how to become physically fit.
Yeah, what's the best way to be? Because I think it's a given. Being physically fit will help make you a better firefighter.
Okay.
And the other interesting argument is that it's worth it, you know, to do that. You might look in like something else that like Tai Chi or like other non-conventional ways to be physically fit. Something you have no knowledge of at all. Like take this as an opportunity to find that shit out. Mental health for firefighters works. And there's another one. Oh yeah, Riley, that's a great question. If you can try to, my idea for the self-reflection for your research topic is to take this consideration and this conversation we have today and think about how you might ask more questions or cut some questions out. So if there's ways to revise your topic because A, you already know the answer to it, B, you thought of something else, or that you're just kind of, you did a little bit more digging and you found some other things, so you just add a little bit to the post, and that's all. It's kind of the same. You're just trying to make it a little bit better, and I'm hoping our conversation will help you do that. Good. Other questions? One that I had earlier that I really liked was someone was basically like, I really like this direction. I like this topic. I'm researching microbiology and evolution, but I have no idea like how I could turn that into rhetoric. Like I just like this topic, but I don't know how I'm going to make it into an argument, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I'm lost. I like it, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it. My response to that I think is helpful is that you don't, just the reason why, and this would work for you as well, Trevor, why your topic is important to you is a certain kind of argument. So you're embedded in your question, Trevor, you're like, how should we get physical fit to all this? Why is physical fitness even really important? And you kind of started to address that question, so I can see where you're going with it. But like, you could choose to do anything. Why are you doing that one? You know what I mean? Like, you are, so yeah, that's how controversial are we able to get? You just need to respect the guidelines for discussion on the basically in the syllabus. So I would encourage you to get as controversial as you would like, but if your topic is about something that is going to make other students feel unwelcome to participate in the class, that's not, like, this is the free speech discussion we had. We live in a university and institution where hate speech is not tolerated. And we need to foster an inclusive environment. So I don't want people to feel like they can't go on the discussion forum because there's someone on there that is researching anti-Semitic views and you're actually Jewish, for example. However, I mean, I'd encourage you to get controversial, and I am personally of the opinion that I think it's helpful to hear controversial opinions and see where you stand on it. Marcus's question is also really good. How specific should our audience be? Eventually, you want to try to be as specific as possible with people that share your interests. For right now, interestingly, your audience is kind of your future self. You're trying to do work for yourself that's going to help you finish the final project for this class. So in some sense, you're kind of trying to save yourself legwork later. You're trying to get good quotes and all of that. And your audience, it depends kind of. I would try to get your audience as specific as possible, thinking about who and how might be able to, like who could address an exigence or a problem that you've identified, but it could change. And it might depend on your topic. I would try to make your audience as specific as possible. It's, someone told me when you're doing research projects, you want a grapefruit sized topic. Not a watermelon sized topic because it's too big to handle, and not like a plum sized topic. You want a grapefruit sized topic. Same thing with the audience. Awesome questions. So I want to make sure that we know, Paul mentioned Academic Search Premier, but some of us do know what I want to make sure that we do. So if you want to open a browser, we're going to lib.colostate.edu. And from lib.colostate.edu, underneath the search bar, there's an A to Z database list. And from the A to Z database list, if you click on that, you're going to get a screen of all the databases. Do we know how much CSU spends each year on subscribing to these databases? I wonder how much. I think it's around, I want to say it's about $3 million. Which is, where do we get that money to do that? Mainly tuition. So I want you to see when you're on this database list, you can search by subject. And let's say you're in agriculture, or you are in education, or you're in business. You can search by the specific discipline, and it will show you in education which journals are your best bets and other ones that deal with educational topics. Honestly, this Academic Search Premier is a really good one. And so that's just lib.colostate.edu, A to Z databases, and then Academic Search Premier. Whoops. And you will need to log on with your EID. And why I like Academic Search Premier is that it gives you extra, like you can refine your search. You can start from a really big topic and then boil it down. So I can ask how to best use e-portfolios to engage authentic, self-directed learning. So that's what I want to know. And the search strategy here did not work because this is searching for everything. That's searching for all those words in a string. It's not going to, if I use Google Scholar, one of the benefits of Google Scholar is it sorts out what's important, and it's going to give me, I can type in a question to Google Scholar and I'm going to get good resources from on campus but out of class. An investigation into students' experiences of learning technologies and their stuff. Okay, so what I can do instead on, let's see, on EBSCO, I'm really interested in looking at ePortfolios as a teaching tool. So I can search for that and see how many sources I get. So I'm starting big. And then I could go into, I want authentic learning. And I can use an asterisk to give me authentic or authenticity or authentically or whatever, any ending. It's like a wild card to see what I get. And here I have this is kind of what I'm interested in. Okay, so one of the things I like about Academic Search Premier, if you've not used this, is if I click on any one of these sources, I can start sorting my sources into a folder that's interesting. So I can just put everything in a folder and then email that folder to myself so I can access it. These subject terms also give me like electronic portfolios in education. I might open that in a new tab. That's going to give me a new search with this subject. I'm also interested in college students, and I'm going to try a different search that way. I also can cite. There's a citation generator here that if you hit cite and then scroll down to APA or MLA, and I can copy and paste and make sure I get the italics right when I paste it in there. I can do that. So I could also, I'm gonna go to college students as a subject, since I'm kind of wanting to do my ePortfolio, and there's 46,000 hits on college students, and then come back in here and do ePortfolio. I'm thinking about, okay, well, there's only 12, but I wonder if I said or electronic portfolio, if that would help anything or not. Gives me some things and so on and so forth. So the other thing that's nice about this is that it does show you if there's HTML full text, PDF full text, or if there's not these things, you can click find it at CSU, which gives, oh yeah, here we go. It'll either forward, basically you can follow the links to get it through the CSU libraries. And if we don't have it, so this one, they do have it through Elsevier. And each of these articles is like crazy expensive if you actually had to try to buy them. Or I could request the article from Interlibrary Loan, which makes our library every bit as good as Harvard, Yale, Brown, Stanford, whatever. So this is actually some human being will find your article in the actual journal and photocopy it in and then email it to you. So does that make sense? The other reason why I like, there's just some other sorting options, and I like this interface. You might be a Google Scholar person, and that's fine. But if we look up physical fitness and see, I bet there's going to be 1 million. No, 600,000, 40,000. Physical fitness and cognition. It's actually really interesting to think about whether or not our physical fitness impacts our body, or impacts our mind and how that might work. But that's basically what I wanted to show you, is encouraging you to, and maybe if I can get cognitive, I could do cognit star to get cognitive cognitions. And find some interesting things like Trevor, maybe there's an interesting analysis of how firefighting fitness corresponds with elite athletes or something like that. The relationship between functional status, fitness, and cognitive performance. So clicking on this, in terms of assessing information, Holy cow. Here's the subject terms. And then Riley, to answer your question, what I would be looking at here is I'm skipping through this until I see, I don't care how they did their study. I want this. Conclusions. The results of this study showed that measures of physical function were associated with cognitive performance, even in highly functioning older South African results. Further research is needed to determine the extent to which exercise training can improve functional capacity. So I'd say measures of physical, I would copy this and put it in my notes and put this citation down. And now I have, like, out of all of this, I was able to choose this, and I was able to find that really quickly. That's kind of what I would go for in terms of using sources.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions that we have? Okay, well, if you are looking for extra feedback or you're waiting for feedback on your topic before you move forward, would you let me know in case it takes me time to get to it? You can just send me an email asking me the question. Otherwise, I won't know how much of my feedback you're really looking for. So just communicate proactively, and it's good to see your faces. And I'm going to conclude our official class and hang out in the classroom in case any of you would like to mill about and talk with other people about things. All right. Boy, I am done. It is time for being done with class. All right. Class is over. Feel free to hang out, and I'll be hanging out as well.